Here they are fucking back at it again. A lawsuit has been filed in the state of Colorado against the crackhead Mike Lindell because he violated the Ku Klux Klan Act and the voting right law. Now, now voting rights groups have filed a lawsuit seeking to stop a pro-Trump sycophantic group from going door to door in Colorado in search of evidence to support voter fraud allegations of non-existent. They've been these voter fraud allegations have already been debunked and rejected by numerous courts. The lawsuit alleges that the U.S. election integrity plan which is led by Sean Smith, who's a nutlicker, a former Trump strategist, Steve Bannon, and the My Pillow crackhead, Mike Lindell. Basically they've been sending armed members door to door in areas which with large numbers of voters of color, questioning people about how they voted and taking photographs of their home. Now the lawsuit, which is backed by the state chapter of the NAACP, which is the League of Women Voters, and the My Familia Vota, meaning My Family Vote. It alleges that the voter intimidation campaign violates the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871, a post-Civil War law that was aimed at preventing white vigilantes from terrorizing black people to stop them from voting. Now, the lawsuit cites the county and local organizing playbook that is used by the group, and it instructs members to undertake citizen audit activities to either refute or confirm serious allegations of election malfeasance in order to support future legal action. Now, the group, some of those members are armed, and they have been going door to door in El Paso, Mesa, and Weld counties in Colorado, using public voter lists to identify areas where they believe ballots were fraudulently cast. The Colorado Times reported last year. Now, the report prompted an alert from Colorado Secretary of State Jenna Griswold, who warned voters of unofficial canvassing efforts, and basically she urged residents to report harassment and threats to local law enforcement or the Justice Department. Now, the defendants' objectives are clear. By planning to threaten and actually deploying armed agents to knock on doors throughout the state of Colorado, USEIP is engaged in voter intimidation. The lawsuit states. USEIP's public-facing actions are basically their clear signal to Colorado voters, especially voters of color, that to vote in an upcoming election it means facing interrogation by potentially arming yourself and threatening the USEIP agents at their doorstep thereafter. The lawsuit claims that some members have worn badges and falsely accused voters of committing fraud. Now, sometimes people that are armed and donning badges to present an appearance of government officiality, the USEIP agents interrogate voters about their addresses, whether they participated in the 2020 election, and if so, how they casted their vote. The complaint says it is reported that multiple agents have claimed to be from the county and have, without any evidence, falsely accused the residents of casting fraudulent ballots. Um, the voting rights groups say that the group's efforts to seek out areas where they believe voter fraud occurred has largely focused on high density housing areas and communities experiencing a growth in the number of minority voters. No one should have to be afraid to go to the polls or fear that doing so will mean being threatened in their own home. This is what Courtney Stetler has a senior county official for Free Speech for People and one of the lawyers leading the lawsuit said in the statement, free and fair elections can only occur when people know that they're able to safely vote without reprisal or intimidation. Now the group's playbook, um, thanks to crackhead Lindell for whatever reason, a leading election conspiracy theorist. Now Smith, the group's founder, attended the crackhead Lindell's election conspiracy laden failed symposium last year in South Dakota, along with the former Colorado election clerk Tina Peters, who was indicted earlier this month for her role in leaking sensitive voting system data that was published by QAnon conspiracy theorists and right-wing websites. Griswold's office said earlier this year that Smith had also convinced another election official, the Albert the Albert County clerk and recorder Dallas Schroeder, to make copies of his office's hard drives, so that which he later gave to unauthorized people in violation of election rules. Now, Sean Smith, who's the head of the USEIP last month led a lock her up chant while discussing Griswold at a Klan rally and said that if you're involved in election fraud, you deserve to hang. Technically, there was no election fraud, so you can't hang somebody for this non-existent fraud that you're looking for. He could also be seen in the video among a group of violent Trump sycophants who clashed outside the Capitol on January 6, 2021. He was also accompanied by Colorado State Representative Ron Hanks, a Republican candidate for U.S. Senate who has also pushed the false election claims. Now, Smith is also the president of another election integrity group called the Cause of America, which is also funded by the crackhead Lindell, which Smith announced on Bannon's War Room podcast. USEIP appears to have fully embraced the QAnon conspiracy theory. Its website and the first page of its playbook include the slogan "We are the plan," which they're really not, and it's frequently associated with QAnon conspiracy theorists. And during a presentation organized by Sharona Bishop, the former campaign manager for Representative Nutcase Lauren Boebert, USEIP leader Corey Anderson, who was also a member of the anti-government 3%er militia, described the briefing as being red-pilled according to the Times Recorder. That expression originally, which is drawn from the Matrix, is popular among QAnon sycophants and other right-wing conspiracy theorists. The lawsuit names Smith, as well as co-founders Holly Kaysen and Ash Epp, who were also at the Capitol Klan attack on January 6, 2021. It alleges that their attempted canvassing for election fraud evidence had the purpose and effect of intimidating Coloradans from voting, trying to vote, and helping others to vote, supporting or advocating for certain political beliefs, or exercising the right to speak, peaceably assemble, or petition the government for redress or grievances. In violation of Section 11B of the Voting Rights Act, the suit also accuses the group of violating the section of the Ku Klux Klan Act that bans conspiracy to interfere with civil rights. Now, sadly, efforts to intimidate voters are nothing new. The NAACP General Counsel Jeanette McCarthy Wallace said in a statement, "The NAACP has a long and proud history of opposing those who would seek to thwart democracy, and we cannot sit idly by and allow voters to potentially be bullied out of exercising their voting rights." The lawsuit does not offer specific examples of voters being intimidated or harassed by armed canvassers, but last year, USEIP leader, the Charity McPike, urged the armed members to provide security for the group. "We are attempting to line up security," which they're really not. But however, anyone who carries protection might want to let us know so that we can offer your cell phone numbers to those who are concerned. This is what McPike, according to Colorado polls, had said. No voter should ever feel threatened in the safety of their own homes, Selena Stewart, League of the Women Voters Chief Counsel, said in a statement. The nefarious actions of the USEIP are a blatant form of voter intimidation used to target and with the intent to silence Colorado voters of color. They are in clear violation of the Voting Rights Act. The USEIP is also working with the Colorado Republican Party in its election integrity operations. Now, according to the Times Recorder, a USEIP member is in charge of the GOP's program, and it has given joint representations with Epp, the group's co-founder. Now, Heidi Gunnall, who is the leading Republican candidate for Colorado governor, promoted the group during a recent event, declaring that they are doing great things. Really, they're not. USEIP did not respond to a request for comment, but the group's website says it plans to expand to other states, including Arizona, Georgia, and New Hampshire. Its training materials are already being used by conspiracy theorists in Utah, who call themselves the Utah Voter Verification Project, according to the Salt Lake Tribune. Now, residents in Hurricane, Utah, alerted Washington County officials in December that members of the group who refused to identify themselves showed up at their doors with personal voter information. According to the report, the members also recorded voters without their consent. "We cannot record anyone without telling them, and we don't need permission," one identified trainer told the outlet. Yes, we do. The group's training manual is also stressed that you do not have to identify yourself at all. Yes, you do. Um, you have, if you're going to come to my house, you have to identify yourself as an inbreeding redneck trying to look for fraud, which you're not going to find. The goal of the Utah group appears to be to collect affidavits from voters who claim to have evidence of illegal votes on which they don't. In the wake of Donald Trump's defeat in 2020, his legal team attempted to submit voter affidavits to prove their debunked allegations, but those efforts were almost entirely rejected by judges and discredited by election officials. There has been no credible evidence of voter fraud anywhere, even in Utah, which Trump won by more than 20 points. But Republican Governor Spencer Cox and Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson condemned those who were spreading misinformation about the election and dismissed the claims of fraud as an absolute falsehood. Other Trump sycophants have tried similar door-to-door audits. The non-credible cyber ninjas, the bankrupt company that led Arizona's failed forensic audit, sought to send canvassers door-to-door in Maricopa County, but ultimately they had to relent after the Justice Department warned that such an effort would violate federal laws against voter intimidation. Now another group, called the New Mexico Audit Force, also sent its members door-to-door in heavily Republican Otero County, which had already spent $50,000 on an audit confirming that Trump had won the country by more than 25 points, which I don't know if he did or not, but obviously he probably didn't. But the House Oversight Committee last Thursday announced a probe of the effort, warning that the audit illegally interferes with Americans' right to vote by spreading disinformation about elections and intimidating voters. Now, USEIP also appears to have had trouble vetting its volunteers. The group's training manual says that the group intends to check volunteers' social media and called on them for a gut check, saying leaders had learned roundaboutly that there were a couple of people in our group who were volunteering for our events, but they also had a criminal history of sexual misconduct, and adding, "It's unfortunate that we must check volunteers for pedophilic leanings." So if you like the video, you can give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RVW King, and you can also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out. And if you want to support my work even further, you can donate. You can donate to my Patreon. My Patreon link, which you can donate as little as $2 a month, $2, and to help further support the work. So, yeah.